Good morning. Good morning. I see laborers in the house. I see parents in the house. Good morning.
Good morning, Ernest. You got one fan.
Okay, one fan. That works.
That works.
We're here this morning on a very serious note. Many of you know who I am. I'm president of the Council of School Supervisors, representing principals, assistant principals, other supervisors in the New York City public schools. And yes, some parents are always surprised when they find out that we also have unionized charter schools in this city, but we do. We're here today because we're talking about school governance of New York City's children. And I think we've all had enough already. We've had enough with people playing politics with our children. We've had enough with people saying that they should decide what's best for the folks of New York City because they live somewhere else. We have a school governance system that works for us. It's not always pretty, but it works for us. And we wouldn't think it needs to be tweaked. We are the ones to tweak it. But we need to have a real clear direction here. And now, these folks in Albany say they only have 3 days left and they might not finish this. They might go on out the door. That's totally unacceptable. Too many years our children have been the political pawns of people who have their own agenda. It is about us educating the 1.1 million children in New York City. And only New York City should determine how that is done. I know what it was like in the past. I know how we didn't have equity and access. I know that in some places, when you're an African American in this city, you couldn't get a teaching job in a district or a supervisory job in some of those districts. We have opened that up. It is time for us to stop this game and take our children seriously. And we have a champion in this. We don't always have to like the way he gets it done, but he gets it done. And whether it was you pre-K and pre-K for all, whether it was getting us high standards for our schools, whether supporting schools that were struggling, not just throwing them away, but supporting them. Well, it's been about getting children learning to read at grade 3, improving reading scores across the districts, not just some districts doing well, but all districts doing well. It's been about improving graduation rates. And it's been about having parents have some conversation, meaningful conversation, and how their children were educated. We've had a champion here. We've elected a mayor. And as part of the mayor's job is governance of our New York City schools. It is time for us to stand up and say enough already in Albany. It is time to put our children first. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you the mayor of the city of New York, our champion, Bill de Blasio.
Ernie, I got to thank you for your powerful and passionate voice on behalf of our children. My friends, Ernie Logan has spent literally his entire life supporting our children. And he is retiring as president of CSA this summer. And he's done an amazing job for his members and for all the children of this school system. But I want to tell you something that Ernie talks about all the time. How it was a teacher who turned his life around. Ernie Logan's an educator and a leader in this city. It might not have been that way, but a teacher turned his life around. And that is what we are talking about today, whether we are going to continue to give our children that chance to be reached by great educators, to be put on a path where they fulfill their potential. That is what is hanging in the balance here. Whether our schools are going to actually work for all our children or not. Because in the past, they did not work for all our children. And we all saw it with our own eyes. The past in this city was not fair, it was not just, it was not right. The rich got richer, the poor got poorer when it came to our school system. There was massive inequality. There were children left behind on a regular basis. There were schools that failed and no one did anything about it. There was chaos and corruption. That's what was all too true in too many of our districts, and there was nothing parents could do about it. Amen. And we, in this city, came to a realization that we had been on the wrong path, that too many schools were failing and too many children were failing, and there was no accountability. Literally no accountability. And it could not go on. And finally, almost 15 years ago, a change happened. A change that had been overdue for decades finally happened. And what we have seen in the last 15 years has been breathtaking. 15 years ago, we barely graduated 1 out of every 2 students from our high schools. That was what was normal in New York City, about a 50% graduation rate. It was normal that our children didn't do well enough, and somehow it got accepted. That's less than 15 years ago. Today, due to what mayoral control allows in terms of speed and action and accountability, the ability to choose a great chancellor and let her do her job. At the end of last school year, we graduated 72.5% of our children. The graduation rate is one part of the puzzle. The dropout rate was the other piece of it. We used to talk about the dropout rate all the time in this city. In the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, we talked about the dropout rate. Because 20%, 25%, 30% of our kids were dropping out, never coming back. We have more work to do. But at the end of last school year, only 9% of our kids had dropped out. Only 9%. And we are on the right path. And year after year, our students perform better. Year after year, more of our students are going to college. But they're not just students of one background. They're students from every neighborhood, every zip code, every race, every ethnicity, every language. Because mayoral control opened the doors for greater equity. The resources that we are putting in to our schools for pre-K for all, for after school for all the middle school kids, for the Single Shepherd Initiative, for 3K coming up ahead, they will help to even up the score and give schools and districts that never got their fair share a chance to finally excel. That's what this is about. There's only 3 days left. 3 days left. Our children's futures hang in the balance. 3 days left. 0 hour is coming in Albany for our children. And here's the simple answer. And I say this to the Senate, the Assembly, and the Governor: get together and pass mayoral control now. This is something that unites so many of us. And New Yorkers, we have strong opinions, and we often have different opinions from each other, but this is one where you find leaders of all stripes, elected officials, labor leaders, civic leaders, community leaders, in common cause, because we do not want to go backwards. When we say chaos and corruption, we mean it literally. For everyone who didn't experience it, let me tell you, there were no guarantees that anything would be done for our children. There were too many places where things were broken and there was no way to stop it. There was corruption. It was rampant. It was obvious. There was patronage everywhere. Unqualified people got hired all the time, and nothing could stop it. And that hurt our children. That is why you see this outpouring. People who know and do not want to go back. A city that's finally beginning to get it right on so many other fronts, and this would set us back years. So I want to thank everyone who's here. Let me note, first of all, our colleagues from the City Council who have been so supportive. Councilmember Ben Kalos, Councilmember Helen Rosenthal, Councilmember Adonis Rodriguez, Councilmember Karen Kozlowitz, Councilmember Corey Johnson, Councilmember Vanessa Gibson, Councilmember Peter Koo, Councilmember Alan Maisel, Councilmember Margaret Chin, and I see the chair of the Education Committee in the City Council and former public school teacher, Danny Drum. I want to thank community leaders and activists who are here. A special thank you to Joanne Yu, the Executive Director of the Asian American Federation, representing so many of our young people who are being served by our public schools. I want to thank our colleagues from Labor here, Cooper Brown, the business manager of Local 94, operating engineers, Bob Master, the Communications Workers of America, and members of unions that have been standing up for mayoral control of education. I want to thank them all. The Hotel Trades Council. They are always loud. I admire that. 32BJ SEIU. 1199 SEIU. DC 37 AFSCME. PSC CUNY. Local 802. The Doctors Council. And CSEA. We thank you all. So we've got people here of so many different communities in this city who agree. And I go all over the city. I talk to parents. I talk to clergy. I talk to labor leaders. I talk to business leaders. I don't know another issue where labor leaders and business leaders agree so much and so often as on mayoral control of education. It's something that actually unites us in this city. And one thing I hear all the time, come on over here. You too, come on. This is the issue. Here's what I hear all the time. We don't want our children treated as political pawns. We want them given the education they deserve. And that can only happen one way. Because think about what is different with mayoral control. We never had pre-K for all our children. It was not possible when you had 32 local school boards and a central board of education appointed by a variety of people. You know what that led to? Paralysis. And there was no way to do something all over the city effectively. So we didn't have pre-K for all our children. We didn't have after school for all our middle school children. We didn't have advanced placement courses in every high school because every district made it up. And they had different priorities, and some were run well and some were not. And sometimes they thought about the children and sometimes they didn't. So look at the proof. We needed pre-K for all those years, but it was impossible. And by the way, if you believe in pre-K, then recognize the minute mayoral control of education is gone, pre-K for all could be gone as well. And that's not right, is it? So we're not going back to a broken system. And if our colleagues in Albany don't pass mayoral control, there's also going to be another cost, a cost to New York City taxpayers. It is projected that this will cost $1.6 billion more over the next 10 years, because we have to reconstitute local school boards, and all the administrative staff and all the redundancy and all the paralysis costs money. $1.6 billion. And I say if Albany doesn't give us back mayoral control, then they should pay the $1.6 billion that it will cost. 3 days left. Our colleagues in Albany should not leave the Capitol until they pass mayoral control. It's as simple as that. Do not leave until you have fulfilled your responsibility to the children of New York City. With that, it's my honor to introduce someone who is really, we all need to thank, because the progress I have delineated happened on her watch and with her leadership, our Chancellor, Carmen Farina.
Well, first of all, I would like to recommend that our Albany legislators read Profiles in Courage. This is a very important book that says, do what's right, not what's politically expedient. Right. And for our children to be held hostage to a system that has, by every state possible, shown success. If you look at every single criteria of what you need to do in an education system, we've improved the graduation rate. We've reduced the dropout rate. We have put more students in college that are college ready than ever before. We have trained more teachers. We have filled in more vacancies. We have 600 teachers going into the Bronx alone from our teaching fellows. We have ensured that all superintendents are held to a higher standard, that all teachers have the materials in their classroom they need to be effective teachers. We have made sure that parents receive not only what they need in English, but we have now opened workshops in every single language that is a predominant language in New York City. That's our report card, and when you get a good report card, you get promoted. You don't get demoted. If you also look at the two things that are most accountable, we have ensured that many parents now have a quality review where they're allowed to give their impression of their respective schools. And don't you think that I don't read these quality reviews very deeply and visit certain schools when I don't think things are going correctly. We have also decided that there are some schools that need more help than others, sort of our renewal schools. But look at another thing besides accountability. If you're going to run a business, you need stability. Who's going to come and apply for a job when they don't know who's in charge? And in this system, the way it is right now, we're in charge. And that makes for us to be accountable, but for people who want to come and work, they know when they come to New York City what they're going to come for. Also, I don't want to be too paranoid, but I always have to ask myself, is there a conspiracy theory here? Is what they say why they're not voting for this the reason they're not voting for this? Is it about not having a New York City that works well for all kids? I was a superintendent. I was a regional superintendent. I was a principal. I know what happens in a system where you could literally work on someone's campaign and the next thing you knew, you became a principal or an assistant principal. By the way, all of you reporters, all you have to do is do your homework, and that's very, very evident. So is that what we want to go back to, or do we want to make sure that everyone who's a teacher in our school, an assistant principal, a principal, is the most qualified to be there, and then also is held accountable by me and their superintendent? We have a very clear hierarchy right now. There is the mayor, there is the chancellor, there are the superintendents, there are the principals, there are the teachers. It's very clear. We don't have all these other people coming in and trying to take a piece of this because of what's in it for them. So for me, I just hope that the people in Albany understand, stand up, be courageous, and make believe that you're voting as if your children and your grandchildren depended on you.
Amen. Our comptroller is someone who has to watch out for the bottom line of this city government, but also someone who's a watchdog to make sure the city's functioning right. And he's been around, and he knew what the old system was like, and he knows a lot about Albany as well. So when I say to you, Comptroller Stringer, imagine taking a step back. Imagine $1.6 billion more and a cost we don't even need. Well, I know that makes his blood boil plenty. I want to introduce our Comptroller, Scott Stringer.
So I actually can't believe we have to do this today, because without a doubt, mayoral control is working. New York City needs it. Mayor de Blasio deserves it based on his record of managing this system. And I say enough is enough. We are not going to go back to the same chaos that plagued our system for decades. And this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. It's a common sense one. It's about making sure that the mayor and the chancellor have the tools they need and the authority they definitely need to make fundamental change. This is a defining moment for the 1.1 million children in public schools today. We cannot let them down. The fact is that without mayoral control, pre-K could not have happened. It took a mayor with a vision and an electoral mandate to say we want to do better for the next generation, and he was able to get it done. When I came to the mayor and said, what can we do about arts education funding and the issues there, I sat in his office and he looked at the report and said, you really believe in this? I said, yes. He got the chancellor and the city council together, and we started to think about education as it relates to arts throughout our city, Brooklyn and the Bronx included, Hazel. This is a system that works. And what I find outrageous today is that the Republicans in Albany, John Flanagan and his crew, want to get their grubby hands on our kids, and we're not going to let them do it. We're going to fight back. And I want to say to the IDC, this is a defining moment, folks. You're either with us or you're against us. I ask you today in the IDC, call the roll and stand with New York City. And Mr. Mayor, if I could just get personal for a second. This September, my son Maxwell is going to go to public school and start kindergarten. Amen. I am thrilled. I'm excited. But I have to tell you something. I don't need legislators educating my children. Right. I need principals and teachers. Yes. I need somebody who is going to watch out for them, not play political games. So I'm very excited, but as a parent, we're worried. We're worried about going backwards to a time when politics determined education, zip code determined education. A whole different way of thinking about public education was back then. I voted for mayoral control back in the day because it was the right thing to do. We must reaffirm it now. And for those who sometimes think that mayoral control may give too much control, have no fear. The controller is going to continue to audit DOE, right? That's never going to change, right? Right?
I believe it.
And that's what the charter says. We have a balance of power. We have mayoral control, but we also have audit, and somehow we've brought this system to a good place. Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. Give him a big round of applause for this fight, and thank you, all of you.
I want to amplify a couple of points the Comptroller made. Comptroller provides oversight. City Council provides oversight. There's lots of ways, there's lots of checks and balances in this city. But you know where the buck stops. You get to hold me accountable, and that was never true in the bad old days. Also, I have to say, the things we've done, Comptroller Stringer is exactly right. He came to me years ago about arts education, and with the City Council, we made a commitment to arts education. We greatly intensified arts education in school, and we've never stopped. Just like we finally did the things that were needed that were never done before, like air conditioning for all our classrooms will now be a reality. And I want to thank the City Council for their support on that. But Ernie, Carmen, air conditioning for all classrooms, did that happen when there were 32 local school boards? No. Were there gyms for all our children when there were 32 local school boards? Things didn't happen under the old system, and now they are happening. And we've got to let that progress continue. Someone who understands what it means for his community, for folks who come here as immigrants following the American dream, and who understands the issue of education from a national perspective as a member of the House Committee on Education and Workforce, Congressman Adriano Espaillat.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I just came from a middle school graduation. My staff tells me that there's nothing better than a middle school graduation. It's better than a wedding. Everybody's happy. The parents are happy. The teachers are happy. The community's happy. And of course, the kids are just thrilled. And I saw them there. And middle school's got to be, a middle school teacher's job has got to be the toughest job in America. So I want to commend teachers in general, but particularly middle school teachers. Because for far too long, we were losing our kids, not at the high school level. We began to lose them at the middle school level. And so I invoked in that graduation, I said, when you look at your $10 bill, who's there? And they said, Alexander Hamilton. And I said, you know, he was an immigrant. He came from Nevis. And now there's this big play on Broadway that tells his story. But who will tell your story? I said to them. And the ending song of the play is, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? And so these kids, they are not the future of the city. They are very present right now. And they're here with us today. So enough with the partisan politics. You know, we supported mayoral control when there was a Republican mayor. That's right. That's right. We supported mayoral control when there was an independent mayor. There is no reason why now mayoral control should be denied to a Democratic mayor. Universal pre-K. Universal pre-K. Give the mayor control. A good, steady, fair contract for the teachers. Give the mayor control. Academic excellence, a decline in the dropout rate, an increase in graduations. Give the mayor control. We got a plan for English language learners, for students with special needs. Give the mayor control. We got to give the mayor control. We will not go back to the horse trading days. And we see it time and time again, how the city is held up by a bunch of folks that don't live here. We see it with rent. You know, people from upstate New York, all the way by the northern country, they call it, that don't have one unit of affordable housing determine what our rent stabilization law should be. Now, they want to get in the classroom and dictate to the city of New York what we should do for our children. Wrong. Wrong. We provide more money to the coffers of the state than the rest of the state. This is not an upstate versus downstate issue. This is an issue of fairness. Give the mayor control. Give the mayor control. And so we will be fighting. And, you know, I was in Albany for 20 long winters, you know, and it's a funnel, you know. Towards the end of session, it becomes a funnel. It begins to close down, Mr. Mayor, and it goes down to sometimes to midnight on that last day, you know, and they want to squeeze you, Mr. Mayor, but don't let them squeeze you. Give the mayor control. Give the mayor control. Thank you.
I mentioned, well, you're fired up. I like that. I mentioned that it is an amazing thing to have educators in positions of power. Isn't it a wonderful thing to have an educator as chancellor? It's also a wonderful thing to have the chairman of the City Council Education Committee, who plays such a crucial role in oversight of our Department of Education. Well, you did those long years in Albany. He did the long years in the classroom teaching our children, and he taught them well, and now he's providing great leadership. Chair Danny Drum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And they were long years, but they were wonderful years. And I always loved being a teacher because it is mostly and should be all about our kids. And that's why we're here today, to stress the importance of mayoral control for the benefit of our children in New York City public schools. Now, much has been said about the administration's accomplishments, and it is true. They have made great strides forward, and these are things that we can all be proud of. I remember, because I taught for 25 years in District 24, and I remember the stories of the old school boards, where the turkeys that were meant for lunch were walking out the back door. And I remember the stories of the pianos that were going out the back door. Look it up. It's all documented. It's all there for everyone to see. And I remember in my own school board where they had differences about equality and about equity and excellence in our public school system. And that was because we had a school board who differed from the view of the central board. But nobody could hold those folks accountable. And I have to tell you now, as the chair of the Education Committee, we have 17 people, 17 council members on the Education Committee. And we oftentimes ask very pointed questions of the chancellor. And we put her in the hot spot, in the hot seat. And we ask her, what are you doing about this? What are you doing about that? But I have to say also, oftentimes the questions that come up are things that people want. And it's the first time that I can remember being in the Education Committee where people say, I want more UPK seats in my school. I want more community learning schools in my district. These are the success stories that we know have happened under mayoral control. So we're here today to say, mayoral control, let's not play politics with our children's lives. We need mayoral control, and we need it now.
All right, we got a late addition, just in time. Hazel, hold on one second, because I got to do Gail first. Someone who has fought for the schools of her district and now her borough for many years. Borough President Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So just like everyone else, this message is for the governor, the majority leader, the Senate coalition leader, whatever the hell that is, and Speaker Hasty. So on behalf of the students and the families and the communities that I proudly serve, just like everyone else, please pass a multi-year extension of mayoral control of the New York City public schools. I definitely remember the old days with the school boards. I remember someone telling me, oh, I should lie, that was a good thing. That was a member of the old school board. I didn't do that. There was confusion and chaos and dysfunction and a total lack of accountability, particularly on the local level. Today we have greater accountability that stops right here at de Blasio's desk. There's no passing the buck. Now let's do what's right for 1.1 million students, their families, move forward in a sustained way and not return to a failed system where they told me to lie. We've seen our schools thrive under mayoral control. You know the list of the APs and the pre-Ks and the implementation of programs that work. It is clear that we still have a long way to go to fully deliver quality educational opportunity to every student in every neighborhood. But mayoral control is a critical component to address those issues, focusing on a continuum of education. These initiatives need a sustained focus to see them come to fruition. Implementing in fits and starts will not get the job done. That is why we need stability in the governance of the school system that a multi-year extension provides. Thank you very much.
Now, we all have a conscience here. She's been our conscience for many years on many issues, but she is particularly passionate about fairness for children. This is one of the things that has animated the life and work of Hazel Dukes, and when she decides to take up a struggle, she does not let go. The president of the New York State NAACP, Hazel Dukes.
Thank you, my friend, Mr. Mayor. And I'm pleased that I had to wait until my borough president spoke. I represent not only the NAACP Community Board 10. My school district is District 5. I had the privilege to call the chancellor in, not in her office, but in my office. She came to the NAACP office with 15 presidents that represent every borough in this city. And questions was asked to her about the importance of things, not about building some buses to go to Albany to shout and bring thousands. We asked her about educating of other children from every background, from every nationality, wherever they came from once they enter our public schools. You've heard the litany of what this mayor and this chancellor. We have 3 more days. Last summer this time I walked 27 miles. American Journey for Justice. I'm in Albany tomorrow for mayor control for justice. Amen. For children of this city. How dare Flanagan from Suffolk County to tell us what is good for our children. He don't even know our children. The makeup of his districts in Suffolk do not look like any district in New York City. And he's not a professional. He's an elected official that gives him no ground to talk about education. We have an educator here who have set a plan for us, along with the city council members that I've worked with over the years about quality education. This is no threat. No threat. Listen, Flanagan. Listen, senators, especially those of you who come from our districts. You do what's right for our children, or you go and find another job. That's the call. That's the call. I will walk in your district. If I walk 27 miles, I'll come into your districts because those are our children there. Children with disability. Children with all kinds of ill, homeless shelter. But our school district take them in. And our chancellor have said, our teachers, I've seen the attitude change in teachers. I've been down at the Wrangle houses. I've worked in those districts. I've seen the change of the attitude because it comes from the top. And it goes, it wasn't that way when I first learned about New York City. Yes, not only was the pianos going out the back door, but even the food was not there. That's right. And this chancellor have said that every child, whether they could pay for the meal or not, would have a lunch at our school, will not be stigmatized. So it's not just about the mayor and the chancellor. It's more important. It's about the next generation. It's about the next journalist. It's about the next borough president. It's about the next doctor to find cure for cancer. That's what education is about. And we are here today to say, give our city, our mayor control. If you're not, we'll meet you in the street, we'll meet you in your district, and you'll be gone looking for a job, but our children will be educated.
I always want to know from Hazel, what does she really feel? I mentioned earlier that there's tremendous unity between the business community and the labor community in this city. Labor unions of all stripes standing with us today, fighting hard for the renewal of mayoral control. 2 weeks ago, 105 leading CEOs signed a letter supporting the renewal of mayoral control, no strings attached. You don't usually see the most important leaders of labor and the most important leaders of business exactly on the same page, but you're seeing it now. And someone who understands our communities and the needs of the business community and will speak to us now, the president of the New York City Building Congress, Carlos Shishura.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio. You know, Scott, I agree with you. I cannot believe we're standing here today talking about mayoral control. It is the biggest waste of everyone's time to be having this conversation. Now, tomorrow, when I go to Albany to stress mayoral control, it would be much nicer if I were going up there saying, thanks for mayoral control. We need some more money for some additional buildings in different communities. Or we need more money to continue to air condition not just classrooms, but cafeterias and kitchens where my mother worked for a union for 25 years. Those are conversations we should be having. And let me tell you this very simply. Mayor de Blasio, you said it best. Labor, elected officials in the city, activists, leaders, business leaders, we're all together fighting for mayoral control. I was on a school board for many years. It's when I met the chancellor and the mayor. I lived and represented what they considered one of the best districts in the city of New York, where only 50% of the students were meeting grade levels. That was not good, and that was a good district. I then served on a CEC, and I saw the differences that mayoral control did. But let me warn everybody, in 2009, I served on a board of education for a very short time when the mayoral control legislation lapsed. It was not a pretty time for the city of New York. It was a time when principals and teachers woke up and did not know who they reported to. Students did not know, and parents, what to do. Think about all of us showing up for work one day and not knowing who our boss is. It is the most ridiculous thing in the universe. It's dumb, it's stupid, it makes no sense. And I have to tell you this, the business community understands it for two simple reasons. They run businesses, they understand accountability. The mayor is accountable, the schools are doing well. It's a simple mathematics equation. Doing well, chancellor, doing well, mayor, you give mayoral control. I think they're still teaching math that way, right, Carmen? So that's number one, easy enough. They also understand another thing. These students are not just here because, they have nothing to do. They are going to school. They are going to be the employees that the business community will be hiring in 15 and 20 years. It is in our interest in the business community to make sure that these students, no matter where they live, no matter where they come from, no matter what language they speak. By the way, I was an ESL student. I spoke no English. My parents are immigrants from Italy when I started kindergarten. These are the students that are going to be the star employees and the employees that will be standing here one day talking about issues. So the message is simple. This coalition may not agree on a lot of things. This coalition is solid in saying mayoral control, not Wednesday night, today. Thank you.
I want to hear from two more people. The second will be the chancellor doing a few minutes of Spanish. But first, he gets a lot of credit for his tireless efforts to create pre-K for all and after school for all of our middle school kids. And he's now helping to lead the way on 3K. Deputy Mayor Richard Bury.
Good afternoon. So I just want to reiterate one point because it's all been said. Mayoral control, I know it sounds like an esoteric or an abstract issue. It is not esoteric. It is not abstract. It is not just a technical question. It goes to the heart of our ability to get things done. You've heard about some of the amazing things happening in our school system. After school for over 115,000 students, free after school in our middle schools. Over 200 community schools as of this fall offering free eyeglasses, social services supports. Mental health supports in all of our schools and pre-K for all. In a year and a half, we went from fewer than 20,000 children in full-day pre-K to 70,000 children, pre-K for every 4-year-old in New York City who wants it. I can tell you that these things would not be possible, would not be practically possible without mayoral control. And it is not just a question of a unitary school system. It's not only a question of having the chancellor be responsible and have an authority over her school system. It is also about all the other parts of city government that report to the mayor. It's about having the same person in charge of the schools and the building department and the health department. Last week we announced that we have double the number of young people, 4-year-olds in temporary housing, admitted to pre-K. We had 800 admitted last year, 1,600 students this year. A coordinated effort between the Department of Education, the Mayor's Office, the Administration for Children's Services, the Department of Homeless Services. I can tell you that these things would not be possible without clear authority, without the fact that I know who my boss is, the Chancellor knows who her boss is, the Health Commissioner knows who her boss is. It's that clear strategy that allows us to get anything done. So all I would say to our leaders in Albany is, if you have disagreements about tactics, that's fine. We can debate tactics. We can debate educational strategy. We can debate all sorts of things. But the one thing you cannot debate are facts. The facts are very simple. We have a system that works. We had a system that didn't work. I have yet to hear one argument, one idea other than mayoral control, one idea that says substantively, this system will work better than the system that we have. We can disagree as adults, but let's not make our children suffer for our disagreements. Please, please, give us the opportunity to continue to do the hard work, the important work, God's work of making the city work for all children. Please restore mayoral control.
Before I bring up the Chancellor for some Espanol, I just want to thank these students from the Bronx Academy of Letters. Thank you very much for joining us. And everyone here is here to support your education and continue to make your education better. We are proud of you, and we look forward to your bright futures. But I've also been impressed by your patience while all of us were talking. So I'd like to give you the opportunity now to go and do something more interesting than stand at this press conference. So thank you for being here to all the young people. Chancellor Carmen Farina.
Es muy importante que el público entienda que tener el alcalde en cargo de las escuelas es muy importante. Y los políticos tienen que darse cuenta que ellos están haciendo cosas que a lo mejor no es muy bueno para los estudiantes. Y quiero que los políticos también sepan y piensen que cada chiquillo que esté en la escuela de Nueva York es su hijo o su nieto. Y para que esos hijos y nietos sigan adelante, que es muy importante que tengamos una persona en cargo de las escuelas que cuando algo pasa que no debe de pasar, a esa persona le llamamos. Y cuando las cosas buenas pueden pasar, que pasen en todas las partes de la ciudad, no solamente en una parte u otra parte. Esto es muy importante y lo tenemos que hacer en estos 2 o 3 días. No esperar a que los políticos de Albany vayan para casa y tenemos que estar meses pensando lo que va a pasar. Es importante y quiero que todos los padres sepan que esto es una oportunidad para ellos ponerse enfrente de este asunto. Muchísimas gracias.
Okay, we're going to welcome your questions on this effort to renew mayoral control, and then we'll take some other questions as well. Questions on this, Marcia. Say a couple of things. First of all, the message you're hearing today, you're hearing it from business leaders, labor leaders, educators, elected officials, is mayoral control is the only system that works, and it should be continued so we can keep helping our children. No strings attached. By the way, the New York City Partnership, you saw the other day, Kathy Weil was here, Steve Schwartzman are here. They said they believe in having charter schools, but they don't believe that should be part of the discussion over mayoral control. So let's be clear. It doesn't matter what you feel about charter schools, you have to have a governance system that actually can work. And Marcia, you personally saw, when I say chaos and corruption under the old school boards, I know you reported on a lot of that. You saw it with your own eyes. We cannot go back to that. So the charter school issue, I'd say this. Some facts would be really helpful here. It is a fact that the charter schools that have applied for space since I came into office, about a quarter of them have gotten exactly what they asked for. About 50% asked for something we did not feel we could physically achieve. They went through an appeal process, which we did not contest, and in exchange, they got money to lease their own space. and then the last quarter are going through the process right now, and the same outcomes will occur. They will either get the space they want or they'll get lease money. That's how the system works. And when you think about the efforts of this administration that you've heard about here, pre-K, we did that with charter schools. After school for all our middle school kids, we did that with charter schools. We're going to do 3K with charter schools. By the way, we work with religious schools too, with Catholic schools, with Jewish schools, yeshivas, with Islamic schools. We want all these schools to succeed. I mean, this is the thing. It's that the political debate undercuts the human reality. I want to see each child and each family succeed, whatever school they choose. And we're working with every type of school to help them succeed. So my message is this to anyone in the state Senate who wants to have a constructive dialogue about how we can work with charter schools and with parents who want charter schools. I would sit down anytime, anywhere, and have that conversation and work together, and I would prove to them all the things we've already done to make that real. But don't hold mayoral control hostage. Don't hold the future of our kids hostage. Give us mayoral control education. We can work together on so many other things to improve the lives of our children. Questions on mayoral control? Yes, Grace.
As a follow-up to Marcia's, are you willing to let mayoral control expire over charter school demands and what we have on charter schools? It sounds like you might be saying that.
Grace, first, it's very, very important to understand. You know, there's 4 men in a room in Albany. You know, there's 3 branches of government here we're talking about. They have to make the decision. I don't have the pretense that I get to make the decision. If I got to make the decision, it would have been made already. I'm not a part of their negotiations. What I'm saying is what they should care about, in my opinion, all of them. Have we produced results? Yes. Is this the best system of governance? Yes. Should the charter issue be dealt with separately? Yes. And we will deal with it with a whole heart, happily. And I said we've got a lot to prove, a lot to show that we have worked together on these issues. But I think it's so important to not be in a situation where this important issue gets held hostage. That's what I'm saying. That's my job, is to show them the results and show them that we have a vision, equity, and excellence for the future, which has continually, since we've had over the last few years under this great chancellor, continually shown higher graduation rates, lower dropout rates, higher test scores. I don't know what they're looking for if that are not the kind of things they want to see in terms of accountability and progress. And so, look, I don't care what combination of features go into their deliberations. They have to continue mayoral control. But anyone who wants to talk about how we can continue together to work on our schools, I've talked to all of them. Let me be clear. I have had a conversation with Leader Flanagan, multiple conversations with Speaker Hastie, multiple conversations with IDC Leader Jeff Klein. I have had multiple conversations with the governor. I sat down with the governor last Wednesday at length and discussed this matter. I've made the point to all of them. We will work with you on any substantive concerns, but do not let this lapse, because then you literally, on July 1st, the new world begins, and it's not a good new world. It's a bad new world.
There's nobody from the UFT here, no members, no leadership. Are they not in support of the extension? Why aren't they here?
Look, again, you'll ask the UFT for their position. They historically, to the best of my knowledge, have not taken a formal position since this administration came in. But they do understand, and you can ask Michael Mulgrew directly, they do understand the costs involved in every sense of the lapse of mayoral control, and they have been, like the CSA, partners in getting so much done. So I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. I would urge you to talk to UFT directly. But I know the kind of partnership we've had with the UFT, the kind of partnership we've had with the CSA was not happening in the past. It is happening now, and it's happening because mayoral control allows for that kind of respectful dialogue and ability to work together. Yes?
Yeah, Mayor, I mean, I guess what have your conversations been with the IBC on this issue, and is there a frustration on your part that if they were in fact here in the Senate, you potentially have a Democratic senator who might not be having this problem?
I don't want to get into the partisan politics. I've simply said to everyone, the whole world is watching, right? To borrow a phrase from the 1960s. Scott remembers. The whole world is watching. Everyone will be held accountable. Everyone up there will be held accountable. And it's not like there are a huge number of other urgent competing issues, right? It's staring them in the face. It's not like we haven't provided all the information in the world to prove that there has been consistent progress. I think there's tremendous respect for Chancellor Farina on both sides of the aisle in Albany. Look, I'm saying this with a whole heart, and that's why I've talked to all the leaders, and I will have a dialogue with them anytime, anywhere. But no one has said to me, I don't believe your graduation rate is better. No one said to me, I don't believe your test scores are better. No one said, I don't believe your dropout rate's not as low as you say. None of them are challenging the facts. None of them are challenging the quality of our chancellor, right? None of them are saying, I have a better system I'd like to institute. Look, I respect Leader Flanagan. I've had a cordial, respectful relationship with him from the beginning. We met at the beginning of the session. We've talked since. He does care about education. I don't doubt that. But he said out loud, even the last week, that he understands mayoral control is the only system that works, and he put forward 3 bills that would extend mayoral control. So if that presents very clearly a consensus. I have not seen very many other things, more things than this where there's that much consensus. So let's do it. Let's extend mayoral control. We'll work on all those other issues, but first we got to extend mayoral control.
Given all that, I mean, do you see, are you feeling resentful at having to have this kind of press conference, and that this is really just a personal sort of animus on the part of the Senate Republicans towards you, that they're trying to make your life miserable?
I don't think, first of all, this is not a time for politics and personalities to begin with, and that's part of what we have to get across to all New Yorkers. This is your children's lives and futures are hanging in the balance here. In fact, again, there's been a series of conversations with all of them, and they have not been rancorous. As I said, I think Leader Flanagan has made clear that he understands what's good about mayoral control. I look forward to speaking to him more. I think this is partly about the way that Albany is, and I think that's something we should all be concerned about, because it should not come down to this. But this is a moment of decision. The last 2 times, I didn't think it was right that there be a 1-year extension. But there was an extension. It did not come with strings attached. At least we were able to keep moving, and we didn't skip a beat. But we're 3 days away, and no one's ever seen anything like this. I mean, David, this is the part that really is a little eerie. I mean, a lot of folks who've been around a while, we never seen anything like this. 3 days to go, 1 central issue, and I don't even think there's been a leaders' meeting, from what I'm hearing. I don't understand how that's possible. So everyone in Albany just needs to understand this is all happening out in the open. And clearly, the people are watching. Marcia.
Mayor, would a 1-year extension be acceptable to the district? The reason I ask that is because in the statement that Leader Flanagan put out last night, he said, he talked about charters, he said he was not about grant a long-term exemption of mayoral control. Now, shortly, it was an alternative opportunity. People who read the TV would often say, this indicates you would go for a 1-year extension, but no long-term extension. Would that be acceptable?
I'll say a couple. It's a very, very important question. So first of all, is that the right thing to do? No. Let me start that way. So you're asking, is it acceptable? Let me start with what I really believe to be the truth. Mayor Bloomberg got 7 years and then got renewed for 6 years. This is not even close. This is apples and oranges if ever I've seen them. But the progress in the schools continued all throughout the time we've been here, so that would have suggested multiple years by any measure. And I think Speaker Hastie has a very important point he's making about fairness for every part of the state. Whether it is a tax extender or the system of governance, everyone should be treated the same. And I have spent a lot of time all over the state, and I have a real appreciation for our colleagues all over the state. And we just want equality. We just want fairness. We want everyone to be treated the same way. So I think Speaker Hasey's right. If legislators want multiple-year tax extenders, give multiple-year mayoral control, and deal with the other issues separately, and we will deal with them with a whole heart. But to your core question, look, have we managed with 1 year before? Yes, we have managed. Is it optimal? No. Yeah.
I'm curious, say it's not reduced and we wake up on July 1st or 2nd. What exactly happens? What's the mechanism? Or suddenly there are elections?
A really bad countdown clock begins. On the morning of July 1st, we would have to reconstitute the old Board of Education. That would have 7 members, no one appointing the majority. And then there would have to be a decision on who the chancellor would be. And then we would start the process for the elections of the local school boards, which would happen in the following spring, but those elections would begin quite soon thereafter. And I want to caution everyone, they would not be like the school board elections we knew in the past, because as a result of the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court, now there can be limitless spending on what would have once seemed like innocuous local elections, but each of the 32 school districts is as large as some of the biggest school systems in America. That's what we got to get through our head. Do the math. A school district is about 250,000 people population. There's a lot of big cities in America, notable cities that have that population, 250,000. So money will pour in from all sides. We saw this in Los Angeles just weeks ago. This is the great unknown. It's not good. It's going to be highly, highly politicized. And the one thing you know for sure, you'll have 32 different school boards with 32 different leaderships with 32 different sets of priorities. And literally, you could have school boards that say, we don't want to do pre-K. We don't think it's the right use of space. We don't want to do advanced placement classes for all our high school students. Go down the list. So that all begins on the morning of July 1st. Yes.
You said you met with the governor. The governor has basically said there's not much important that still needs to be done. He's basically been MIA from the Capitol. What did you ask him to do, and what was his response to you?
I won't characterize his response. I asked him to lead. I said, we need you to step up and be the one who brings everyone together. We understand there's differences between the Assembly and the Senate. We understand they're held by different parties. That's why we have a governor.
And, when I tweeted that you had met with him, I'll give credit to Chris Smith from New York Med, because you replied saying, the governor then the next day went on to New York One and said, I don't think mayoral control is getting extended. Did you hear those remarks the day after you met with him?
Again, I'm not going to characterize what was a very lengthy conversation. There have been a number of phone calls since as well. I will be very straightforward. There was no agreed upon script for public comment after that meeting. That was certainly not what I was thinking. But again, look, the governor, when he puts his mind to something, he can be very, very effective. And it's a chance now to break through this gridlock and get it done. Well,
You're not in Albany. Is your sense that you're such a polarizing figure at this point in Albany that you're more effective being far away?
I think you're leading the witness, Willie. I don't think of myself that way, but that's not why I'm here instead of there. I have, first of all, people's business to do here, but second, I've been in touch with all 4 leaders throughout. And if at any point we believe that going to Albany is a more effective strategy, I'll go in a minute. But the telephone has been working. There's been a constant dialogue. And again, I think this is not about personality or politics. I think there's many other things going on that some of the commentaries in the last 24 hours have gotten to about the underlying interests of different leaders. But my job is to explain to the people of this city and explain to everyone making the decision in Albany what this is going to actually mean for human beings. Rich.
Then, just to follow up a little bit on the questions in regard to the politics, so you don't see this as payback by the Senate?
I think that was the last 2 times, Rich. I really do. I think it was the last 2 times. I think, you know, everyone knows I was not involved in the last general election. Everyone knows that. So we still replaying the 2014 election that they ended up winning anyway. I honestly don't think that's what it is. I think it is, again, I'm not going to get into the weeds of what their motivations are or what their constituencies are or any of that kind of stuff. But I honestly don't think it's that. And I think it's time to blow by that and say, we got to put that behind, because last 2 times there was a dialogue going on. Scott understands the inside Albany madness, somewhat. He rebelled and left. But you can, and feel free to jump in. This is not normal. That they used to be having this conversation a lot sooner, and they were getting somewhere. It's Monday morning, they haven't even met. Would you like to educate?
Look, I think the reason we're here in New York City and not running up to Albany like beggars is because we have too much respect for our kids. And there comes a point where enough is enough. The Albany gamemanship has now truly jeopardized our children, and they're putting us on the edge. Many of us were around when we had to reconstitute the Board of Education. Carla was there as the deputy borough president. I was a borough president. It was a painful process that took away from educating kids and just trying to hold the city together. The de Blasio administration is way ahead of us on this, but this shouldn't be necessary. And we are going to stand as one united city, and we are going to hold these folks accountable. I am shocked. I am shocked that there are actually Democrats in the state Senate, at least in name only, that won't today say we're for mayoral control. If they did that in an hour, this thing would basically be over. And we have got to hold them accountable to that, and they're not going to divide us here. We're here with the mayor. We're standing together because this is a moment that this city needs to make right, and we're going to be with you in this fight in the next 72 hours.
Conversation with Senator Flanagan recently?
Yeah, 1 at the beginning of the session and 1 recently. I want to say Thursday or Friday.
You being the key figure, wouldn't it be necessary?
I've made very clear my willingness to and my desire to have follow-up conversations. I reached out to him again this morning. My staff has reached out again to try and set up an additional call. The heart is willing. Let me do 2 more. Go ahead.
I mean, leading up to that, do you feel like there's anything you could have done to have made the dynamic different up to this point right now, or that you kind of regret not doing?
No, I'll tell you guys like to ask those kind of questions. I want to be real with you. I think my job was to, with the chancellor, run the schools well. That's what it was supposed to be about. You know, there's always been questions from Albany about quality education, how we use our money, et cetera. My job is to answer those questions by showing constant progress and accountability and transparency. We've done that over and over again. So I understand the Albany culture is a thing unto itself. I don't pretend to be able to sway the people in Albany single-handedly, but I've been in a regular dialogue with them. I provided all the facts, all the evidence, and I think you guys know me. My choice when something's not moving is to start organizing people. And thank you, Council Members Lander and Levine, for joining us, to start organizing people to make their voices heard. So we're doing that now. This is what I hope will help get the message across to Albany. Last question, go ahead.
All these problems with LIRR and developing the city, how big of a priority is this for you?
Mayoral control education? I think it's about as big a priority as we got. Look, again, considering that for 15 years it has been renewed. There was that one little blip in 2009, but that was also related to a crisis within the Senate leadership and the leadership changing hands suddenly. But basically speaking, for 15 years, it has been renewed consistently and has allowed us to make all these changes. I did not expect it to get to this. It's as simple as that. It's Monday morning. They're leaving Wednesday night. I've never seen anything like it. So we are, since we're dealing with something we've never seen before, we're going to address it very, very aggressively. We all know that they can keep going as late into June as they want, and they have in the past. They've stayed till the end of June in the past. They've gone and come back. There's all sorts of options, but they got to get it done. But I had hoped this would be consistent with the last 15 years of history. Now we see something different. There's no bigger priority than getting this done. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.